안녕하세요, 안녕하세요, hey you, it's Natalia, and welcome back to the channel that does its best to encourage you to believe in your abilities to learn Korean. Today I will be interviewing Steve Kaufmann, a polyglot who speaks 20 languages. Yes, that's right, I said 20 languages, and he's also the co-founder of Link, a popular language learning website. I am more than certain that you guys will gain something from our discussion today on how to learn a language from scratch. So let's jump into it. Go, go! Hi, Steve. Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you, Natalia.
All right. So I know who you are, but if my viewers don't, would you be willing to give a self-introduction?
Sure. So I gather you're in Texas. I'm in Vancouver. It's a lot wetter here and cooler than in Texas. I love languages. During my career, initially for 7 years as a Canadian diplomat, and then as an executive in the wood business, I had the need or the opportunity to learn quite a few languages. Only in one of them was I actually at a school, which was for Mandarin Chinese in Hong Kong. This is in 1968. And then since the age of 60, which is 14 years ago, I've become particularly interested in learning languages. I've learned about 10 since then. I always learn on my own. Together with my son, we have created a website for language learning called Link, L-I-N-G-Q. That's where I learn. I also have a YouTube channel where I, as you do, encourage people to learn languages as one of the more useful and fun things we can do in life. And I'm right now working on my 19th and 20th language, which, as usual, I am learning from scratch on my own. And those are Arabic and Persian.
Awesome. Wow, that's very, very exciting. I remember that you were actually the first language learning YouTube channel that I found.
Oh.
Yes, and I found you through your 90-day challenge for Korean. I remember at the time I was preparing to study abroad in Korea, and I didn't know any Korean because I was originally going to go to China. So I had spent years studying Chinese, and then suddenly there was a country switch, language switch, and I needed to learn Korean, and I didn't know how to do that. And so I started looking for things, and your challenge popped up, and it was very motivating to me. I remember I'd watch a video a day because I was studying alone in my room, and I felt very alone, I guess, and it was very motivational to me to see someone else trying to learn.
Well, that's in a way the purpose of my channel, and I put however poorly I speak Korean or Persian or Arabic, I'll just do a video full of mistakes, full of ums and ahs and hesitation, and we all go through that stage.
So today I wanted to talk about how to learn a language from scratch. A lot of my viewers are on the younger side, and this is their first time trying to teach themselves anything. And so I get a lot of questions asking how they should start, the best way to start outside of resources. So I was wondering if you could give us or give them any tips, as you've done it multiple times.
So, the first thing is you've got to be motivated, okay? And but the positive thing is that very often we're somewhat sort of semi-motivated to learn a language, and as we get into the language and start discovering the language, we become or can become more and more motivated. Motivated because we discover things about the language, and as we achieve a little bit of success, that's always very motivating. If you recognize your little steps of success, that's good for you. Don't beat yourself up over what you can't do. So attitude is important. Also be prepared to spend the time. Okay, there's no sudden, wow, I've been at it for 2 weeks and I can speak the language. You can say something after 2 weeks, no question. You can say my name is and stuff, but that's meaningless. It doesn't matter what you can say after a week or a month. What matters is what can you say after a year. So commit yourself to the long haul, invest up front in upgrading, particularly your comprehension and your vocabulary, so that at the end of, say, a year, you can actually have a conversation with someone. And don't worry too much about what you can say in the early stages, or how accurate you are, or what you forget, or what you can't do, or what you don't understand. None of that matters. You just have to stay with it. So that's sort of general intro, if you want. Now, what I have found is in the initial period, there is a learning system, teaching system, which originated in the US, and it's called TPRS, Teaching Proficiency Through Reading and Storytelling. There's a lot of stuff in that, and that's very popular now in schools. People are realizing that you can't just shove grammar down people's throats. You have to give them something interesting. And in that, they develop these, what they call point of view stories. where you tell a story in the first person and then you tell it the same story in the third person, or you tell a story in the present tense and you tell it again in the past tense or the future tense. And then you ask what they call circling questions. So, you know, Mary went to the store. Did Mary go to the library? No, Mary went to the store. So you give the answer. Mary went to the store. That's the answer. Then you say, did Mary go to the store? Sort of thing. So again, it's 3 more opportunities to hear the same vocabulary. So, for example, in Link, we have 60 mini stories, which use the most common verbs of a language. And they are all the sort of point of view story followed by circling questions. So you get the same structure and the same vocabulary, slightly different tense, slightly inverted word order, you know, question, negative, positive, whatever. You get it 5 times. And so my strategy now is I simply start with mini stories. And if I have an issue with grammar, I can look it up. I try to keep around me, you know, I find some websites, Google Arabic verbs. If I want to know something, I look it up. But I don't try to get the grammar in me up front because you don't have any point of reference. You have to first get the language in you. And so reading these mini stories and listening to them at first is just noise. And particularly in the Arabic script for me, or Persian, which is the Arabic script, it's very difficult. So I look up the words, I save them to a database, I get to see them in different colors and stuff like that, which helps me. But it doesn't matter whether you use Link or not. The point is you want to be with some relatively simple material with a lot of repetition, with a focus on high frequency verbs. And don't try to learn the way they do in these books, where today we're going to do the colors and we're going to do the members of your family. You can't absorb that stuff in that fashion. You can only get it as part of larger context, okay? And so I would say for the first 3 months, and probably for Korean, if you're an English speaker, would be longer, just listening to these, and I'll listen to them 30, 40 times. Not in a row. Like I'll listen to lesson 1, don't understand, go on to lesson 2, lesson 3, and back to lesson 1, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, back to 1. And at the end of the day, I've listened to them 30 times, like at the end of 3 months, okay? So that is driving the basic structure, the basic verbs into your brain. The brain is starting to sort these things out. The brain starts to recognize the patterns. Your brain is a pattern recognizing machine if you feed it enough input. And now after 3 months or 6 months, depending on the language, the brain is tired of those simple stories. You may go back to them from time to time to refresh, but now you need new interesting content. And that we can get into was part of the problem I had with Korean, is trying to bridge the gap between the simple stuff, of which there is a lot, and yet the interesting stuff is too difficult. So that has been for me, and that is a problem. I believe in the initial 3 months or so, we are so keen on learning the language. We can listen to stuff that's not that intrinsically interesting. But comes a point where now, okay, we want to explore, we want to, you know, understand Korean drama or something. And that's, we can get into that, but that's the next step up. Maybe I should stop.
No, you're good. You're doing great. I love that your method is very high on input in the beginning, because that's how I tend to start a language. So with Korean, I think I started using a tracker after watching one of your videos, because I was curious about how much time I was actually putting towards the language, not what I perceived I was putting into the language.
Right.
Spoiler, I was putting in a lot less time than I thought. But I started keeping track of how long I was listening or how much listening I did. And I think within the first 2 months, I did 74 hours of just trying to listen. And I'm big on patterns as well. So I wanted to see, okay, it seems that this means this. And I actually enjoy studying grammar while in the beginning. So I like hearing it being used like, oh, okay, so this grammar structure, they say that it's used like this, but it appears that they're also using it in this situation and that situation. And I think listening isn't something that people perhaps want to do at the beginning. Maybe they just want to start learning words because they think it's not, if they can't understand it, it's not worth it. But I think it is, because in the beginning, I can't tell where the word ends and where it stops. And I find that's very important. So, awesome. Yep. All right, as we're coming to the end of our interview, would you like to take a moment to talk about Link for those of those of my viewers who don't know what Link is?
Okay, Link is a platform which sort of, I would say, powers up sort of input-based learning primarily. We do have tutors, sort of like italki, but that's very minor. The bulk of it is that we have a lot of content in 37 languages, Some languages have more than others. Always audio and text. And then there's a bunch of functionality that helps you to learn the words and makes it very convenient to listen to the audio, which is always there, not while you're necessarily looking at the text, although you can do that, but also when you're away from, you know, the computer or the iPhone or whatever, listening. Tracks all your activities, tracks how many words you've read, how many words you've learned, how many hours you've listened. You can bring stuff in, you can import ebooks, you can import Netflix movies, you know, or YouTube movies. So you have both sort of beginner material to get you started and the ability to literally bring in any content and then a bunch of functionality that helps you learn from that content. Difficult to describe in a few words. So kind of everything you need is kind of there. We are revamping it now because the interface is a little bit old. And so within a month or two, it'll be, you know, the library will look more like Netflix. The lesson page is more pleasing. I'm using it now on my iPhone in beta. So we're constantly working to try and make it better. So it's to my mind, it's a very convenient place to learn languages. That's where I learn. It's suitable for this day and age, the MP3, internet, etc. day and age. And certainly would welcome people to come and join us at Link.
Awesome. Steve, thank you so much for being willing to speak with me about language learning and just open both my viewers and myself up to different perspectives on just language learning.
Okay, well, I enjoyed it. Okay, good luck in your exploring different Oriental or Asian or eventually other languages too.
Alrighty guys, so I am going to link, see what I did there? I'm going to link all of Steve's social media channels down below, as well as the 90-day Korean challenge video playlist that I was talking about earlier in the description box, and a link to link. Anyway, I will see you guys in the next video. So tell me bye guys. Bye.